Hello, hello, hello. We're on the road. Does that mean I can't do leitmotif breakdowns? No, it does not. It means I'm doing it from the car. We're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. If you are new to this channel, it's called Film Score Freaks. This is where I do all of these leitmotif breakdowns. We talk about the scores. It's a really fun time. I used to do them over on my main channel, Classical Trombone. This is a spin-off. Maybe it'll be even bigger than the other one. Certainly know there's more fans of Marvel than trombone. So here we are. We're talking about Guardians 3. I just finished watching it for a second time. I actually brought in some cards to take notes on during the movie like a crazy person. This is just a quick overall, maybe not quick, overall overview of the score by John Murphy. It's really, really great, but we're going to talk about it in depth in future videos this week, so come on back for that, where we talk about specific leitmotifs and things. I'm going to talk about some of them here, but this is unscripted, and I just want to get this out there so you know my thoughts on it. And let's jump right in. We have not as much stuff as most Marvel movies, and that's because, and it's been talked about a million times before, the soundtrack is such a big role in these movies, the Guardians specifically. It's all diegetic. Again, people have talked about this more than I have, but basically that means all of the music that is on the soundtrack, the actual songs being played, are being played on a speaker in the scene somewhere, and the characters are also listening to that song along with us. So with that, there are scenes that you would expect a big musical score, and instead it's the diegetic music because it plays such a big role. It's written into the script, it's written into everything. So we're not going to talk about that too much. There's a few times where I've noticed it seems like the score has been replaced with some diegetic music. I'll talk about it then, because today it's all about John Murphy. Now, John is taking over from Tyler Bates. You know, I get a little bit nervous, or maybe a lot of bit nervous, when we have a new composer in a franchise. There are some composers who do it really, really well, like Michael Giacchino, like Danny Elfman, taking the thematic material from all sorts of other stuff, or the past franchise films, and including it. And then there are other people who don't do that as well. The Iron Man films come to mind, where you get a new composer, completely new thematic material, and there's no continuity. So I was very happy to hear there's a lot of continuity. I'm actually going to go back and listen and analyze the first two Guardian films this week, just to make sure there's nothing I missed, because there are things like Kraglin has a theme in this. So many spoilers, please. If you're not, come on, you know what, you clicked on this video, you knew what was going to happen. So Kraglin, when he uses the arrow in the fight against Adam Warlock right at the beginning, it starts this theme, and then it plays a much more heroic version when he successfully uses the arrow in the third act. That said, I do want to go back and make sure it's not the Yondu theme or something that's being pulled from a previous movie. I don't think it is, but I'm going to be super sure, because I'm going to be the one to break that news. There is something I noticed. We're jumping all over the place, but at the very end of this, when they're all circled up and they're breaking up the band, there's this theme that's played, which is actually the same cue as the very first thing in the first Guardians movie. It's such a cool bookend. It's the Guardians theme, really slow on piano, and it's the first scene where Peter's in the hospital with his mom. And weird, right, that it would be the Guardians theme, not like a Lost theme or something more poetic there. It's the Guardians of the Galaxy theme, just played slow on piano. What could that mean? There's a couple different ways to think about this, and one is that it, you know, bookends it. It's this theme that is really foreshadowing everything to come, and that this is the spark of it, where it was all ego, right? He gave his mom cancer, he sent Yondu to pick him up, and it all starts right here in the hospital. And so without all of that, there's no Guardians of the Galaxy. So that's one way to think about it. But I think there's a better explanation, which is that theme played that way, it also represents that place on Earth, and his grandfather's there. And then we hear it again finally at the end of this whole journey, when he's talking about going back there. So where is he going back to? He's going back to that specific kind of moment in his heart, and it's a really painful thing, and so that's what we're hearing. Lots of different ways, but it's such a nice thing. And so I bring that up to say that John Murphy for sure did his homework. He's using all of this stuff that came before, which is so great. Now let's talk about the actual stuff going on here. There's a lot of soundscapes that set the tone for each different thing and remain consistent. The first thing, it's called Kits, the very first track, where we have all the baby raccoons and the hand ominously coming in. And that sets this kind of sound of strings, and it's so complex. All of the scenes down there in like the cages have that sound to it, where it's kind of sentimental. It goes through phases of being really, really like joyous and playful and like innocent. God, it's so innocent. I didn't cry once. I cried many times. We'll get to that. But we set the scene with these kind of mixing major and minor strings to say the innocence of these animals, but also the ominousness of them being locked up and tortured, and the friendship between them, and the sentimentality of him thinking back, like this is clearly a flashback. All of that complexity is in this music, when there's no reason for it to be. That is so complex, and it's all there. And then we have these low synths come in, and this is still just in this opening scene when the hands come in, boom, these kind of low, gnarly synths that are like, oh, that's the bad guy. Like, we get it. It's effective. It happens in everything. Iron Man 2, like all of that. It's just these like low, descending half-step synths, boom, boom, that kind of vibe. And we hear that throughout this. However, the villain has his own sphere of sound, which is this classical piece that's been written, translated to "Be not as you are, but as you should be." And I have a bone to pick with movies in general, pop culture in general, for having classical music just be the villain. And it's like some guy who is kind of upper class or into those kind of finer things in life and has, like, it's a trope. It also is very effective. It happens with Kingpin. It happens with Loki, remember, when he came and was stabbing somebody's eye out to classical music. Without any of the visuals, this is a gorgeous piece of music. I think it's written by John Murphy, and it is gorgeous. Really, really, really gorgeous. And it's redeemed by the end, and I'll explain why. But yeah, I just have a bone to pick with that. Like, can we have a villain that's like into like pop punk or something? I guess that happens occasionally too, but in the classical music thing, I'm just like, okay, yeah. But through all his scenes, we hear this classical piece. It comes back when Rocket's doing the math and figuring out like what's wrong with the Terrigenesis, or whatever we're calling that for now. And that's all, yeah, the high evolutionary. Also when he like freaks out when they like try to train the guns on him and say like, stop this, you're doing too much. That also plays there, his theme. But it comes back later in this spot. I have to triple check, but when Groot saves Adam Warlock, right? And Adam's like, why? Like, I tried to kill you. And he says, like, everyone deserves a second chance. We hear this piece, I believe. It's a quote of the piece again. Be not as you are, but as you should be. It's like this really nice reclamation of the villain's theme, where the villain is trying to remake everybody in like a perfect world, and Groot is basically being like, no, we all have it in us. It's a redemption story of just like, be who you should be. It's not about what you've done, it's about what you do now. What a sweet way to reclaim it. And that's all in the music. It's all in the score. It's a good score, and there's not that much to do because there are moments where, again, it's the soundtrack. The Guardians theme comes back a few times, but as James Gunn has said, and it's been said a few times, this has all been about Rocket. The whole trilogy, it's actually been about Rocket, and that becomes very clear when the most heroic version of the Guardians theme is not with the Guardians all teamed up. Thinking back, I was like, there had to have been an amazing, like, heroic Guardians theme when they're fighting everybody in the hallway. But that was a soundtrack piece. That was, I think that was the Beastie Boys one. So there's no Guardians theme in that, which is a shame. Like, of course, if there was a musical score there, it would have been. But the biggest, most heroic Guardians theme happens when Rocket's ship gets kind of covered with these, what do they call them? Hellspawn things. And he does this like thing to get away from them all. And the Guardians theme, it's just him. It's literally just him when the Guardians theme plays its most heroically in this movie. So yeah, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but that's what we do here. And so that seems like, oh, it was him all along. There's his theme, like he's the one that's leading this group. It was always about him. Adam Warlock has these like kind of AC/DC Iron Man style guitars. In the very first, I guess the second track, which is Adam Warlock versus the Guardians, when he arrives there, it's this like jada, jada. It's really, really. It reminds me so much of Iron Man. Everything about that scene reminds me of Iron Man just like coming in to save the day, even though in this way he's the villain, another villain. And I believe that one was replaced with some soundtrack music, but it's really effective on the score. So check that out if you haven't already. That's just track 2, but it comes back a lot. These kind of distorted guitars being Adam Warlock's kind of soundscape, if you will. Oh, okay, we'll end with this one because it killed me. So we have these kind of ethereal sounds coming from the caged animals scenes. They're so traumatic and layered. The track is called Naming, and it's a lot of the kind of thematic material we're used to hearing in these spaces, the same instrumentation with like cello and piano and flute. And when Lila says, like, it's right when she says her name, it switches from this kind of somber, minor, kind of sentimental, kind of dark thing into the most playful, like if you close your eyes in that moment, they're having a good time, their voices are sweet, it sounds like children on a playground. And that with the backdrop of this like prison cell torture is, it got me 2 times. It got me the first time around. I didn't know why. It got me the second time around because I was writing notes. It goes into this like F major thing that is just so pure on the backdrop of that prison cell was heartbreaking and so beautiful, so complex to kind of show in a way that like they are truly innocent, and because they have each other, everything's fine. That theme comes back in the same way, and this really beautiful moment. I don't know if this was a director choice or a composer choice. It's really hard to tell with these sometimes, but either way, when Drax is in the prison cell trying to communicate with the children, right? And they're like scaring the children and everybody, and then Drax gets in there and he kind of does this little dance for them. He like does the robot, makes the monkey noises. It's the same theme. It comes right back, the F major, and it's very similar kind of thing where they're like on different sides of bars, in this like prison and making each other laugh. It's a great moment, a great parallel. Love to see it. If you listen to anything on the album, listen to Naming, honorable mention being More Ergaste Forn, the villain's classical piece. There's a full version of it at the end of the album. So beautiful, like really haunting, really gorgeous. And I would give it to that because most villains have, like I said, meow, like that's the whole villain theme. Great, we get it. And there's some of that in here too, like the Hellspawn have a theme which is literally just bum 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 bum. Like we've heard that a million times before as well, but it's effective and they're not particularly complex creatures. We don't have anything to go off of them. They're literally just like, okay, here we go, go fight and die. So perhaps it should be just that, this kind of like march of Hellspawn. Makes total sense. But we have a villain theme that is, first of all, gorgeous, and second of all, this giant complex melody and sonic quality that is not so simply just a leitmotif. It's a whole piece of music, like fully fleshed out piece of music. So I would give my favorite pick to that, and it would totally deserve it if it not for the track 8 naming being so layered that I can't even quite put it into words. So just go listen to it. It's my favorite thing that's happened in any movie in a very long time. So there it is, my favorite pick, naming off of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. There's a lot of really good stuff in, again, not that many cues because of all of the soundtrack music, which is great. I mean, there's even the throwback to Come and Get Your Love at the end, like the fan service there. It's nice, you know? Like, I appreciate it. But excited to get my full breakdown out, so come on back later in the week. I'll be showing examples from the actual tracks, and then I'll be releasing short form videos for all of the individual leitmotifs, so they'll be super easy to search for in the future if you ever want to reference them. So thanks for coming by again. I know not as many people are going to be watching these videos because I'm posting them on a new channel, but if you're here, thank you so much for being here early. Please comment below with stuff you liked, stuff you heard, stuff you want me to do next, and I'll see you all real soon. Peace.